Two incomes should mean twice the financial security, right? More money coming in, more cushion for emergencies, more breathing room. But here's the thing that took me way too long to understand. Millions of dual-income families are actually more financially vulnerable than single-income families were a generation ago. And once you see why, you can't unsee it. Let me paint a picture. It's 1971. A family of four lives on one salary. Dad works at the plant, mom stays home with the kids. They've got a 3-bedroom house, a car, and they're putting a little away each month. Things are tight sometimes, but they're making it work. Fast forward to today, same family structure, but now both parents work full-time. Combined, they're bringing in way more money than that 1971 family, even adjusted for inflation. So they should be crushing it financially, right? Except they're not. They're stressed about money constantly. They're one layoff away from disaster, and they have almost nothing in savings. What happened? This is what researchers call the two-income trap. And it's not about avocado toast or too many streaming subscriptions. It's about something much sneakier that's baked into the system. Here's how the trap works. Let's say back in the day, a single-income family brought home $50,000 a year. They'd spend maybe $30,000 on essentials: housing, food, transportation, healthcare, childcare if needed. That left $20,000 of wiggle room, money for emergencies, money for a vacation, money to absorb a rough month. Now let's look at a modern dual-income family making a combined $100,000. Sounds like they should have tons of breathing room, right? Double the income means double the cushion. But that's not what happens. Instead, they're fixed costs. And this is the key part, the stuff they have to pay no matter what. Those costs balloon to eat up almost everything. They're spending maybe $85,000 on what they consider essentials. That leaves just $15,000 in flexible money. Wait, the family making twice as much has less cushion than the family making half as much? How does that math work? It works because of something called the bidding war for the basics. When more families have two incomes, they can afford to pay more for housing. Sounds fine until you realize everyone else is doing the same thing. So, housing prices rise to meet all that new purchasing power. The same house that cost a reasonable chunk of one salary now costs a massive chunk of two salaries. And it's not just any housing, it's housing in specific neighborhoods, the ones with decent schools. Because unlike our 1971 family, today's parents often feel like their kids' entire future depends on getting into the right school district. So families stretch their budgets to the breaking point to buy or rent in areas with good public schools. Here's a wild number. Since the early 1970s, the average family's spending on housing has increased by about 70%, adjusted for inflation. But here's what's interesting. Spending on clothes actually went down, spending on food, roughly the same, appliances, down. The big increases are in three categories: housing, healthcare, and childcare, the non-negotiable stuff. This is the trap snapping shut. When both adults work, the family now needs 2 cars instead of 1. They need childcare, which can easily run $1,500 a month or more per kid. They need professional clothes for 2 people. They need to eat more meals out because nobody has time to cook every night. So even though they're making more, they're spending more on things they can't cut. And that's where the vulnerability comes in. Remember that single-income family from 1971? If dad got laid off, mom could enter the workforce. It wasn't ideal, but it was a backup plan. They had a reserve player on the bench. But the dual-income family? Both players are already on the field. If either person loses their job, there's no backup plan. There's no one waiting to jump in. They just lose half their income overnight while still being locked into expenses that assumed 2 salaries. And the data backs this up. Families with 2 working parents are actually more likely to face bankruptcy than families where one parent stays home. Not because they're irresponsible, but because they've optimized for best-case scenarios with no margin for bad ones. Now, I want to be clear about something. This isn't an argument that one parent should stay home. That's a personal choice, and for many families, having both parents work isn't optional. It's survival. Plus, women fighting for the right to have careers is one of the most important social changes of the past century. This isn't about rolling that back. What this is about is understanding a system that quietly punishes families for doing what seems logical. A system where everyone chasing the same good schools drives prices up until the good schools require two incomes to afford. A system where the safe financial move, having two earners, actually creates more risk, not less. So, what do you actually do with this information? First, understand the difference between fixed costs and flexible costs. Fixed costs are the things you have to pay no matter what: your rent or mortgage, car payments, insurance, childcare. Flexible costs are everything else: dining out, entertainment, clothes, vacations. The trap catches people because their fixed costs creep up to consume both incomes. So when trouble hits, there's nothing left to cut. You can cancel Netflix, sure, that's $12. But your mortgage doesn't care that you just got laid off. One approach is to try to keep your fixed costs at a level that one income could cover, even if it's tight. I know. In some cities that's basically impossible. But even getting closer to that ratio gives you more resilience. It means if something goes wrong, you have actual options. Second, question the bidding war. Is the house in the better school district actually worth the extra $700 a month? Maybe. But maybe the difference between school districts isn't as dramatic as the real estate agents want you to believe. This is worth actually researching instead of just assuming. Some families have found that the cheaper neighborhood with the supposedly worse schools actually works out fine, and the money they save goes into a college fund that matters way more than which elementary school their kid attended. Third, build your emergency fund like your financial life depends on it, because it does. The rule of thumb used to be 3 months of expenses. For dual-income families in the two-income trap, 6 months is safer. Yeah, that's a lot of money. But it's the difference between a job loss being stressful and a job loss being catastrophic. Fourth, consider what I call the backup plan conversation. Sit down with your partner and talk through the worst-case scenarios. What if one of you couldn't work for 6 months? What would you cut? What's actually cuttable? A lot of families have never had this conversation and just assume they'd figure it out. Having a plan before you need one is way less painful than improvising during a crisis. And fifth, resist lifestyle inflation that locks you in. When you get a raise, the temptation is to upgrade your life in ways that require that raise to continue. Bigger apartment, nicer car, more expensive neighborhood. But every upgrade to your fixed costs is another link in the chain. The goal isn't to never enjoy your money, it's to enjoy it in ways that don't make you more fragile. Look, the two-income trap isn't a personal failing, it's a structural problem. When everyone's chasing the same limited resources, prices rise to absorb whatever purchasing power people have. It happened with housing, it's happening with college tuition, it's probably happening with things we haven't even noticed yet. Understanding the trap doesn't magically free you from it, but it does let you make more intentional choices. It lets you recognize when you're about to optimize yourself into a corner, and it gives you language to push back against the pressure to spend more just because you earn more. Because the point of two incomes was supposed to be freedom, the freedom to have options, to weather storms, to build something, not to run faster just to stay in the same place. If this helped you see your finances a little differently, you might like what we do here at Like Your 5. We break down the money stuff that nobody explained to us the first time around. Hit subscribe if you want to keep learning without feeling like you need an economics degree to follow along. We'll see you in the next one.